Hi, I'm Mike Field. I'm the Manager of Transportation Operations for the City of Hamilton in the Public Works Department. And today I'm just going to go over the Ward 1 Complete Streets Safety Study, Public Information Center content. Before I do that, I just want to provide some context about roadway safety in the City of Hamilton. You'll see or you'll hear references to complete streets. And a complete street is a street that provides accommodations for road users that make the most sense for that particular type of street. For example, a residential street where residents live, they're not really meant to have large vehicles like transport trucks drive down them. It's more often that they need to be functioning so they can deliver the needs of residents who live on the street, like pedestrians and cyclists and small vehicles that people drive to and from their homes. So with that sort of street, we want to make sure that the street is constructed in a way that enables that type of transportation. And other streets that have different needs, such as the Link and the Red Hill, as an example, we know that we're not going to have pedestrians and cyclists on that roadway. And we're going to have a lot of heavy, large vehicles, and we want to move a lot of traffic through those types of roadways. So the road is obviously designed to meet the needs of those road users. Last year, Council approved the Complete Streets Design Guideline. It's a really important document for us that frames how we prioritize road users and ultimately how we adjust existing streets or build new streets to attend to the desires or the needs of those particular roadways. So a complete street isn't a street that provides equal access to all road users. It's a street that accommodates the road users that need to use that particular type of street. Another really important piece that we have in the City of Hamilton is our Vision Zero, our commitment to Vision Zero. And Vision Zero is, in its most basic form, it's an objective that we have to eliminate serious and fatal collisions across the city. And we approach roadway safety from a bunch of different ways to help achieve that goal. And just on the slide I have here, this is a good breakdown of how traditionally roadway safety was dealt with compared to how Vision Zero looks at roadway safety in a method we call a safe systems approach. Traditionally, we would look at trying to eliminate all crashes across the entire city. However, we recognize that that's an impossible objective, that we can't stop crashes from happening. But what we can do is we can work on the way that the transportation network operates so that when those crashes occur, it doesn't result in someone's death or injury. So that's a pretty big difference for us, where we focus our energies more on prevention of serious injuries and deaths as opposed to preventing crashes themselves. The other one is, it was more normal to blame human error or human behavior for the cause of a collision. But we recognize now, and everyone can relate to this, that people make mistakes. It's unreasonable to think that people won't make mistakes when they're walking or cycling or driving. And the road system, therefore, needs to be able to accommodate for people to make those mistakes and not result in their injury or death. The other piece, and I'm sure everyone can relate to speeding concerns in the city. It's one of the main concerns that we hear about in councillors' offices as well. The traditional way is to try to control speeding across the entire city. That's not an effective way of approaching things. Rather, we should be looking at reducing the kinetic energy that's involved in a collision. So we know when there's higher amounts of kinetic energy, there's more opportunity that someone's going to be injured or killed in a collision. For example, a train versus a car. Obviously, the train has far more kinetic energy than a vehicle, and the train's going to cause more damage. So with that, we look at the kind of the dynamics of kinetic energy when it comes to setting speed limits. And on a residential street, for example, when we know that there's going to be the possibility of increased conflicts between different types of road users like vehicles and pedestrians and cyclists, that sort of thing, we want to reduce the kinetic energy that would be involved in a collision that would happen on that type of roadway. So we want to have the speed limits and the speed controls on a particular street customized to that type of street, and to reduce the kinetic energy of a collision if it were to occur. The other one is, blaming singular road users for a collision. That driver was ridiculous in the decision that they made, or that pedestrian shouldn't have been listening to music on headphones or something. They should have been paying more attention. In actual fact, the safe systems approach is more looking at the shared responsibility of roadway safety collectively for all road users and how they all work together to make our roads safer. However, with that, it's not an equal shared responsibility. There is more responsibility for, say, a driver to make sure that they're operating their vehicle safer than a pedestrian from when they're walking around the city, because we know that 90% of the time that a pedestrian is involved in a collision, they're injured. That doesn't exist for drivers when they're involved in collisions. It's a far lesser injury rate for them, so they have a larger responsibility within the safe systems approach to make sure that they are fulfilling their responsibilities for a safe road network. Last one is maybe the most important for me and my team, and the traditional way of looking at roadway safety was reacting to crash history, and a familiar phrase that we have heard in the past is that, do we have to wait for someone to die before the city does something? And that's kind of based on the old reactive methodologies of doing roadway safety. Instead, now we look at it from a proactive perspective, where we want to use data and input from residents to look for areas that could possibly result in a collision that would injure or kill someone, and then work to address those instances first before the collision occurs. So that's a pretty big difference in traditional versus safe systems approach. So in response to some of the concerns that have been brought forward within Ward 1 to the Ward Councillor's office, and in alignment with our principles of Vision Zero, the councillor chose to undertake a complete street study for Ward 1. And we have engaged a consulting firm to help lead that study. They're called Dillon Consulting, and they're going to create a report that's going to look at localized needs for the communities that can address a number of concerns. And I've got a couple on the slide here. All of the safety concerns within neighborhood streets, reduce residential traffic speeds, enhance public spaces, improve road safety for all road users. The one thing that this report isn't looking at, though, is arterial roadways. It is looking at the neighborhood roadways within Ward 1. And the reason for that is, as a municipality, we're more often looking at those arterial roadways and less often digging into the details of a neighborhood street. So this is a method that we can really look at the neighborhood streets and the function of the neighborhood streets and the safety on neighborhood streets. And the arterial roadways are looked at through a different method. So for this discussion, I'm just going to give a brief overview of how it's going to go. I'm going to give the project overview and talk about that. I already talked a little bit about the safety principles and how that kind of is the umbrella connection to all the work that happens. I'm going to go over the Strathcona and Kirkendall neighborhoods and those study areas. I'm going to look at the schedule of the project and the key milestones that are involved in it. I'm going to touch on some of the existing conditions, like infrastructure and land use. We're going to go over data collection that's happened to date and what we're looking for data collection in the future. We're going to identify some of the preliminary key issues and potential options. We're also going to look at some additional issues, and that's where we're going to seek input, or want to really emphasize we're seeking input from residents to provide their point of view or their perspectives into this study. We'll talk about the next steps, where we're going from this PIC and onwards. And then one of the important things of how you can connect yourself into this study. So I already mentioned some of the safety objectives that are related to this project. We're going to focus on complete streets principles for this. We're going to align it with our Vision Zero objectives. I mentioned that we're not looking at arterial roadways, major roadways in the city. We're focusing on local and collector roadways. The next one, this is a good one. This is a community-centric approach. That's why we're holding PICs. We're really looking for community engagement and input into the study. We want to use data to drive some of the outputs that we have. And I'm using the term data plus. Data is meaning that we're going to use traditional statistical information, say from collision reports, those sorts of things. The plus piece is that we're also going to be looking at data provided from residents that maybe is not necessarily quantitative, but maybe more qualitative statements too. And then we're going to also go through and look at multifaceted safety enhancements through these neighborhoods. So there's going to be a variety of different methods that we can use and options based on the findings. And it's not going to be one solution fit all for the entire area. It's going to be customized solutions based on the roadway or the area or the neighborhood and what's being revealed through the study. The project schedule, we're at the very beginnings of this study right now in Q4 of 2023, and we're going to continue the kind of the beginnings up to Q1 of 2024, early next year. Right now, we're documenting the existing conditions of the neighborhoods, and we're beginning to gather stakeholder feedback or resident feedback. Stakeholder references is residents and people who live in the neighborhoods. Early next year, we're going to start developing problem and opportunity statements as an output of looking at the existing conditions and, the first look into the feedback that we're receiving. In 2024 in Q2, about the middle of the year, we're going to be developing the potential options that we think will address some of the concerns that we're seeing or the issues that we're seeing within a neighborhood. Then a real important piece is in Q3, is a second public information center. This is where we're going to be presenting the potential options to the residents and looking for feedback on whether those options are effective, if they make sense, if they're comprehensive, if we're missing anything. So while this is a great PIC now, or a great discussion about the beginnings of the project and outlining the how this project's going to work and garnering public feedback, the Public Information Center number 2 is really important. So if you have interest in following along with this project, I would encourage you to watch and wait for and participate in the Public Information Center number 2, which is about let's say 3/4 of the way through next year. In Q4, towards the end of the year, we're going to look at finalizing this entire study. And then after that, we'll look at implementing all of the recommendations out of the report. Typically, they come in 3 different varieties: short, medium, and long-term recommendations. Short-term recommendations are ones that would begin to pop up within the neighborhoods in 2025. And then medium and long-term ones will take some time to implement and will be phased in and funded through conversations with the community and the councillor's office. So the first one I'm going to go through is the Kirkendall neighborhood. Just an overview of the actual neighborhood itself. It includes Kirkendall North and Kirkendall South. The focus is really, like I mentioned, on local and collector roadways, not arterial roadways. And we also want to focus on those key features within the neighborhood, like schools and parks and community centers that attract visitors and are kind of points of interest for the community to visit and walk to, bike to, drive to. So with Kirkendall North, the existing conditions, this is a good map of kind of showing some of the active transportation facilities that exist in Kirkendall North right now. There's a variety of trails within this area. There's bike facilities or cycling facilities, cycling lanes and designated routes. The black dots on the map show the bike rack or bike parking accommodations within this Kirkendall North area. And then we want to look at how all of those things integrate with each other and that's kind of feedback that we're looking for from the residents, but also that we're looking at independently is how do all of these things work together within the neighborhood? How do they interact? Are they sufficient? Are they in the right spot? Do they serve the needs of the neighborhood? This slide here looks at the existing conditions of the road network itself and the function of the road network. You'll see that it has some blue dots there showing traffic signals in the area. Also, the dashed lines are one-way streets. There's quite a few one-way streets in Kirkendall North compared to the other parts of the ward. And what we want to look at here, or what we're examining, is the function of the road network. And, does it make sense? Do all of those one-way streets make sense? And if not, what should they look like, or how are they impacting the safety and operation of the neighborhood? Now, I mentioned earlier that we're not looking at arterial roadways, but we are looking at where local roadways or collector roadways intersect with those arterial roadways at, where the traffic signals are generally where those types of roads intersect. Not always, but we want to look at how the secondary roads or the local roads and neighborhood roads function when they intersect and cross over those arterial roadways. So that's part of the examination for this study. We want to look at the traffic control that exists within the neighborhood. Only traffic signals are shown in this slide, but what's missing are things like traffic stop signs. So we want to look at the stop signs and other forms of traffic control to determine if they are effective and serving the purpose that they're meant to serve. And like I mentioned, the function of the road network. In this particular part of Kirkendall North, we want to look at those one-way streets. Public transit is another consideration for this study, and this map shows the public transit that exists within Kirkendall North today. And typically, public transit operates on the arterial roadways, but does make its way onto some collector and local roadways as well. And we want to review the function of that to make sure that it makes sense, and that a good example that we've discussed already are the bus stops. Are there enough bus stops? Are the bus stops in the right spot? Are there accommodations for proper accessibility to get to the bus stop as crossing the street, for example? Is there a safe crossing that's within a reasonable distance from the bus stop, or maybe there's not? So those are kinds of things that we would like to look at through this study too. So we've done some data collection to date. As a municipality, we do a lot of data collection when it comes to the traffic system for a variety of different reasons. But we leverage this data for different forms. In this case, we're going to use this data to help identify opportunities, or identify challenges and opportunities. So we've got some areas in the ward that we've already done some data collection. That might include traffic counts. So we're looking at the movements of vehicles through intersections, and we'll count how many vehicles are making a left-hand turn, how many are making right-hand turn, how many people are going straight through, all those types of things. We'll look at volumes, how many vehicles are traveling on a particular road, and then we'll also look at speed. At what speed are those vehicles traveling at? As we move on here, obviously we don't have data that's collected on every single roadway within the Kirkendall North area, but we would build on that. We would do additional data collection to help us as this project kind of progresses, and fill in the blanks, because data is an important piece of the puzzle when we're looking at identifying solutions and opportunities. It's worth mentioning too that our data collection is just not solely for vehicles. We also collect data for pedestrians and cyclists as well. So it's not only one type of user. So when we look at our collision database that we have for the city within a 5-year period, 2018 to current, basically, we can see there's a lot of activity within Kirkendall North and the ward in general. And we're able to articulate this within some awesome statistics, if you like statistics. But I just want to point to the total number of collisions within this area being 391 in that 5-year period. And 34 of those collisions were injuries. And an injury isn't someone needing minor assistance. It's a visit to a hospital typically. Also, I'll point out that of those collisions, 2 involve cyclists and 12 involve pedestrians. And with the principles of Vision Zero, we really want to be protecting the interests or the safety of vulnerable road users. So ideally, after the study is completed and we have all these measures in place, we want to see the total number of collisions reduced, but we really want to see the injury collisions and the collisions involving vulnerable road users put to 0. It's worth noting that this collision data here does point out that a lot of the collisions happen on arterial roadways and not so often on neighborhood roadways. And we have a heat map kind of demonstrating that is the condition here. But nonetheless, it's a good perspective to have to see the amount of collision activity happening in an area. So I mentioned that community feedback is really important to this study. And over the years, us being the city and the councillor's office have received a lot of feedback in this ward, in this area, but also across the entire city. And just recently, I want to say maybe within a 1-year time period, we've got 20 unique concerns that were collected across Kirkendall North. And that just highlights the issues and the concerns of the residents. And some of the feedback that we hear within that area specifically is about speeding, running stop signs, requests for speed controls like speed humps, and general requests for traffic calming measures and pedestrian safety improvements. Just a couple notable examples that we have as we've collected that information, our speeding concerns on Queen Street South and Jackson Street West, with a request for the city to mitigate that speeding issue for those types of roadways and enhance safety for all road users. We noted that there's a number of incidents of red light violations at 175 Longwood Road. That's in around the McMaster Innovation Park. And then, the related increased safety concerns about that. And then, like we saw, there's a lot of one-way streets in Kirkendall North, and there's issues raised related to people driving the wrong way on those streets. So I'll just go over Kirkendall South now. So again, breaking down in the same way that we looked at Kirkendall North, there are a number of trails within this part of the ward, and cycling facilities, and not quite as many, of those amenities, but they still exist within there. So again, we want to look at those things and make sure that they make sense, that they're in the right place, and they're serving the purpose that they're intended. The traffic control, you can see, there's a lot of signals along Aberdeen, and what's missing here are the stop signs. There's obviously quite a few stop signs in Kirkendall South that don't show up here, but there's in fact, no one-way streets within Kirkendall South like there was in Kirkendall North. But again, we want to look at how all of these roadways work together within this area and how they function, and if there's any opportunities to look at the function of those streets and the role that they play related to roadway safety. Then public transit service, again, the public transit typically follows the main roadways, and like I mentioned, we want to look at is that servicing the neighborhood properly? Are the bus stops in the right spot? Are those accommodations to get to the bus stop, do they make sense? Are they safe? And then again, data collection. In this case, not a whole lot of data collection within Kirkendall South to date. Most of the data collection has occurred on Aberdeen Avenue. However, as I mentioned, we will be looking at collecting data kind of as needed to inform decisions and that sort of thing within Kirkendall South. So it's expected that we would do some additional data collection within the neighborhood streets themselves, whether those are turning movement counts or speed and volume type of data collection. Then the collision history within Kirkendall South, lower number of collisions, obviously, than Kirkendall North, 89 total collisions, but 15 of those were injury collisions and 4 involved cyclists. So again, we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to reduce the total number of collisions, but really focus in on getting rid of those fatal and injury type collisions and enhance the safety of vulnerable road users. Community feedback, as I mentioned, has been collected, and in this case, we've recently heard about 10 different concerns that we've collected. We hope to collect more through this study, and some of those highlights include high-speed traffic again, speeding concerns again, a request for some enhanced pedestrian crossings, pavement markings, and concerns over traffic flow and safety at some of the main intersections within this area. Some notable examples of some of the concerns that were brought forward or some of the comments, a request for speed cushions again, this time on Mapleside, near Mapleside Park to address speeding concerns. Calls for improved pavement markings, pedestrian safety measures on Dundurn South, Glenside, Aberdeen, and Shadoke, again, related to speeding concerns. And then vehicle speeds and pedestrian safety at Loch and Aberdeen. So that kind of wraps up the Kirkendall neighborhood, and I'm just going to move on to Strathcona now. And all of these slides are very similar, but obviously, if you live in one particular area, you'll be more interested in looking at that information specifically. So again, just a reminder that we're looking at Kirkendall North, South, and Strathcona. So it's much of Ward 1 is included. So existing conditions in Strathcona, you can see that there's a number of trails and cycling amenities within this area. And we want to make sure that those make sense again, related to the desires of people and where they need to go and its connection or integration to the road network in general. And the black dots, just as a reminder, are some of the bike parking facilities that are available in this area. And again, do those make sense? So we want to look at the active transportation facilities in this area and apply that lens to see if there's any opportunities that we believe that there might be some possible improvements. So the road network shown here, we have Dundurn Street that kind of cuts through, and you have King Street and York Boulevard, some major roadways, and there's one short segment of a one-way street, but generally they're all two-way roadways in here. We want to look at, like I mentioned for the other slides, the function of all of these roads and how they work together, and are they serving the purposes they need? Are they contributing to the safety in the neighborhood, or are they being a detriment to the neighborhood in the way that they're functioning? Public transit again, making its way into the Strathcona neighborhood, and it's always a good look at seeing how the public transit amenities kind of connect with the neighborhood need, and anything that we identify through this study we'll consider and we'll work with our partners in transit through perhaps what they do now, but also their re-envision study that they're working on to see if there's opportunities to integrate what we're doing with this complete street study and the work that they do. There's a good amount of data collection that's happened in Strathcona, but again, generally is within the arterial roadways. That's pretty standard for us. We're often collecting a lot of data on arterial roadways and lesser on local and collector roadways. But like I mentioned before, we will be doing some extra data collection as the study progresses to provide some extra information to the study and reveal some of the information that we need. For example, if a resident brings forward, or a number of residents bring forward of speeding concerns on their street, on their neighborhood street, it's not unusual that we would go out and collect speed data or even volume data in that case on that very specific street. Collision history for Strathcona in the last 5 years, there's been just over 500 total collisions. 63 of those were injury collisions, and 13 involved cyclists and 12 involved pedestrians. And like we've talked already, we really want to build the road network and the function of the amenities that exist in it, whether that be the sidewalks and pedestrian crossings and cycling network, to really work to eliminate those instances of fatal and injury collisions, and have the cyclists involved, the pedestrian involved collisions go to zero. So with our community feedback collection for Strathcona, we've heard over 20 concerns recently. And some of those highlights are compliance with stop signs, requests for speed bumps about, that's related to speeding concerns, and, requests for traffic calming measures to address cut-through traffic in this instance, where people are trying to escape maybe congestion on an arterial roadway and then cut through a neighborhood street, which isn't welcomed traffic for anyone who lives on those streets. Some examples are frequent non-compliance with no right on red at York and Locke, causing some close calls. Near misses is another way to describe those. Requests for speed bumps on Ray Street North and Napier Street to address some speeding issues, and stop sign compliance on Locke and Barton and Breadalbane. So all things considered, now looking at the ward as a whole and the study as a whole, what are the key initial issues and opportunities that we see and the consulting team sees? The first one is enhancing roadway infrastructure, so evaluating that infrastructure to better accommodate vulnerable road users, to make sure that those active transportation amenities that exist, that they're integrating well with the road network, and that they're not coming in conflict with each other, and that it's easy to walk and cycle through the neighborhoods. Intersection safety is an important one, looking at building on the safe amenities or safe function of intersections, whether they are two local roads intersecting, or if it's a local road or collector road intersecting with an arterial roadway. We want to make sure that they make sense and that they are protecting the interests of vulnerable road users from a safety perspective. Traffic calming, looking at ways to reduce vehicle speeds and those sorts of things, reduce cut through traffic, or make it more inconvenient for people to use a neighborhood street to get between two arterial roadways that don't live in the community or in the neighborhood. So that's a big piece of looking at the different types of traffic calming that we want to use within the neighborhoods. Cycling facility improvements, so looking at the existing cycling facilities that are there and determining if they are functioning as they should, or looking for places where they are planned for and don't exist, or where they were never considered before. And maybe we should look at expanding cycling facilities in areas that we haven't thought about. And then accessibility and consistency. This is really important one, is making sure that everyone can get where they need to go, and they can do that safely, whether you're in a vehicle or on a bike or walking, and that the built environment also enables, someone who has some challenges, whether that's walking, for example, that we have the infrastructure is built to we have ramps, and they're easy to get up onto if you have some mobility limitations or otherwise, that that across the entire neighborhood, that it looks the same, it feels the same, and it's accessible to the users that need to use all of the things that we have. So we see the opportunities for improvement, the potential enhancements here is aligning roadway improvements with upcoming urban projects and comprehensive city plans. That's an important one as we develop as a city, and we densify within a downtown. We want to make sure that those plans are in tune with the way that these neighborhoods need to function from a safety perspective, and that we also take opportunities to say if we're going to come and reconstruct a roadway, that we recognize that we want to make larger improvements to that roadway through reconstruction, that we just don't want to replace what was there in the first place if it was ineffective. One, enhance the roadway wayfinding. That's really, about the visual cues that we have on our roadways, whether they're street signs or pavement markings, to make sure that people can understand how to interact with the road network in a safe manner and get to where they need to go for all modes of transportation, whether it's a vehicle or a bike or a pedestrian. We want to upgrade the crossings for all to ensure safe transit for pedestrians and cyclists. We're heavily focused on making sure that all modes of transportation are considered in the study, and that things such as crossings and crosswalks, like I mentioned, with wayfinding, are appropriate for all the road users that use that we don't have an imbalance in safety for one type of road user, and it's compromising the safety of a different type of road user. We want to have strategic traffic calming measures to address the cut-through traffic, aggressive driving in these neighborhoods. Speeding and high volumes of traffic is not meant to operate on a neighborhood roadway, so we want to have strategies in place, whether they're physical or otherwise, to help mitigate those or reduce those opportunities for people to use a neighborhood road in the way that it's not really meant to. We want to expand the cycling facilities. I talked about this a little bit on a slide or two previously, making sure that the cycling facilities are appropriate, that they're all ages and abilities, and that they make sense as far as function or connectivity perspective, that people make sense to use them and they're going to get them to where they want to go. Then that accessibility piece is really important, making sure that the road network and all of the amenities within are accessible for everyone, and that there's an inclusive environment for all road users. And then, kind of similar to the very first bullet, making sure we're integrating these things that we're doing in this study with citywide initiatives. And for Strathcona, for example, we want to make sure that it's integrated with the upcoming York Boulevard reconstruction, and that the changes that we're looking at are considering the future redevelopment of King Street with LRT and Main Street with two-way conversion, that we're not going to create future issues when those projects come along. And we're thinking of those things now during this study and doing the best we can to try and anticipate what impacts those types of projects would have on the neighborhood streets or vice versa. So the next steps for this study, again, we're right now at the beginning. We're at kind of the community input stage where we're really looking for resident feedback for this. That's a really important piece of this study, because we can collect all the statistical data, and we're really good at getting that information, but we really want to hear from people who live on the roadways and experience living on them, and the concerns that they may have or their ideas for improvements. That's really a key piece to this study. That's an important set of data that will really help us and the consulting team identify opportunities and then some solutions to try to address some of those issues. We're going to continue on with data collection. We have targeted areas that we want to do data collection, and then as we receive feedback from residents, we're also going to expand data collection to look at back up some of the comments that we're receiving from the residents. After that, we're going to define that problem and opportunity statement, or refine it. We kind of have a basic problem opportunity statement. We really want to refine it based on when we receive that community feedback, looked at it, done some more data collection, because having the problem opportunity statement really helps us focus in on where we're going to go next, which is developing the options. What are the types of solutions that we want to put in these neighborhoods, and where, and how? And then, like I mentioned early on, that second PIC, where we will bring forward all of those potential solutions and then seek some additional input from residents about those to understand, is this in line with what we're all thinking? Do we agree that this is filling in the puzzle pieces and solving some of the issues that have been revealed? And then after that's all done, we will finalize the study and then move towards implementing all of these things over the next number of years. So again, I can't reiterate enough how important feedback is for this type of project. We've done some other complete street studies in some of the other wards, and we have received quite a bit of resident feedback, which proved to be really important. And it's great to see the level of engagement that we received on those. And I have every expectation that Ward 1 will be just as engaged with this initiative too, because we all have that shared interest. Everyone who lives in the city is really interested in making sure that our cities are safe and livable. We are using a platform called the Engage Hamilton platform that is our kind of main method for engagement, and it enables availability of a lot of information, such as there's a mapping tool that can be used where you can really zone in on a part of the neighborhood. Maybe it's where you live or an intersection close to your home, and you can drop a pin and you can leave a comment about what your thoughts are about that very specific location. You can do that as many times as you want for as many different areas within the ward. And then other people can see your comments, and you can see other people's comments, and you can react to their comments too, and you can add more information to something that they're saying. Or if you're not quite in agreement with what they're saying, you can give a different perspective from your point of concern. And then we take all that information, and like I mentioned, that really helps us to evolve some of the solutions or identify the opportunities and provide solutions. With that, we're recording all of the input that we receive, whether it's through the Engage Hamilton platform, that mapping feature that I mentioned, or if it's through emails or phone calls, or anything that's received, not only directly to the city, but from the councillor's office as well. So we want to make sure that we record all that input, and we're not missing anyone's contributions for providing input and their thoughts into the study. So how can you stay informed with this? The best thing that you can do is the Engage Hamilton website, which the link is here on this slide. And this Engage Hamilton website will be updated as the project progresses, with a lot of great information that you can use. But also we have two main contacts. We have Brad Wiley. He's a member of the roadway safety team. He's leading this project from the city's point of view. And Brad's contact information is on there, and you can contact Brad by phone or email. And then our consulting partner, Mike Walters, he's the lead with Dillon Consulting, and there is Mike's phone number and email address as well. And of course, you can always reach out to the counselor's office if you're unsure who to talk to or how to get in contact with the say either the city or the consulting team on this project. With that, I just want to thank you for listening in on all this information for the kickoff of this really important project. And we really need your help. Your voice matters in this type of study. And I'm encouraged that we're going to receive a lot of great input from Ward 1 and the communities within Ward 1 to really help us define this study and make the neighborhood streets within the ward a better, safer place to live.